Bonjour, bienvenue. Today is all about French pronouns. So what are pronouns? Pronouns are words that we use in a sentence to replace a noun. The most commonly used pronoun is a personal pronoun, but there's a lot of other ones that you also need to know in order to master the French language. In this lesson, you'll learn about different kinds of pronouns and how to use them. The first type of pronoun that we're going to look at is called the subject pronoun. It is used to replace the subject in a sentence, so the person or thing that's doing the action. So let's look at the list of subject pronouns. We have je, tu, il or elle, nous, on, and then we have vous, il or elle in the plural. Okay, so let's apply how to use a subject pronoun in a sentence. So in this basic sentence, Alexandra studies philosophy. Alexandra étudie la philosophie. So now we want to change the name Alexandra and we want to replace that with a pronoun. So what pronoun would we use? We would use elle because elle is the third person, feminine singular pronoun. Okay? She studies philosophy. English, en français, elle étudie la philosophie. So all we did, we took the name, the proper noun, and replaced it with a pronoun. Simple, basic. Okay? So that was pretty basic. You have your subject, verb, direct object. So now let's look at an object pronoun. In the object pronoun, the object is having something done to it in the sentence. There are two types of object pronoun, objet direct, objet indirect, direct object, and indirect object. So let's look at the list of object pronouns. The first one is me, not to confuse with me in English, it's pronounced me. So me, te, le, and la. So one is feminine, one is masculine, and they both mean it. Then we have nous, vous, and les. So let's start with direct objects. Direct objects precede the verb in all sentences except for affirmative and imperative. So let's look at an example of a sentence with a direct object. So in the first example, we have Pierre mange une pomme. Peter is eating an apple. And then we want to say he's eating it. In French, we have il la mange. Now let's pause here for a second. I want you to take notice of something. In English, we have he's eating it. He is your subject pronoun. Eating is your verb. It is the object pronoun. In French, we have il la mange. Subject pronoun il. Object pronoun la. And then your verb. So notice the order is not the same in French. It's the other way around. Okay, so anytime you're using an object pronoun, it precedes the verb. It comes before the verb. Okay, so that's very important to notice. It's not always word for word or the same order when you're translating from French to English or from English to French. Sometimes, you have to change the order. Okay, I want you to take notice of that. Okay, let's take another example. I'm taking a nap. Je fais une sieste. And then I want to say, I'm taking it. Je le fais. So notice again, I'm taking it. Okay, subject pronoun, verb, object pronoun in English. In French, je le fais. Subject pronoun, object pronoun, verb. Okay, so the verb comes last in the French sentence. Now let's talk about indirect pronouns. Okay, so let's go over the list of indirect pronouns. For the first one, we have me, then te, then lui. Notice lui is used for both him and her. Okay, for indirect pronouns, we use lui for him and her. Then nous, vous, and leur. Indirect pronouns are used if the verb is being done to somebody or something. So same as direct pronouns, indirect pronouns also precede the verb. Okay, so in this first example, je parle à Myriam. I'm speaking to Myriam. And then you want to say, I'm speaking to her. Je lui parle. Je lui parle. We use lui because lui is used for him and her, okay, for direct object. Je lui parle. So again, lui is preceding the verb. Let's take another example. Juliette parle à ses amis. Juliette is speaking to her friends. And then we want to say, Juliette is speaking to them. Juliette leur parle. So leur, again, is preceding the verb. Okay? And the reason why parle has ent at the end, or ent, is because they is plural. Okay? So that's why it has ent. Now to interrogative pronouns. Interrogative pronouns are words you use to ask questions. They're question words, like what in English, que in French. So let's go through the list of interrogative pronouns. The first one is qui, then que, à qui, à quoi. So let's do an example with all four of these question words. The first one is qui est à la porte? Who's at the door? So as you see, question words come in the beginning of the question in French and in English. So same thing here. Those are similarities. Next, que veut-il? What does he want? Next example, à qui appartient cette veste? Whose jacket is this? And the last one, à quoi tu penses? What are you thinking about? Now let's look at possessive pronouns. Possessive pronouns show possession. They're used in place of nouns to indicate to whom or to what those nouns belong. So let's look at the list of possessive pronouns. First one, we have le mien and la mienne. Le mien is masculine, la mienne is feminine. Then, le tien, la tienne, le sien, la sienne, le nôtre, la nôtre, le vôtre, la vôtre, le leur, and la leur. Possessive pronouns replace the noun entirely. And I know this part is a little bit confusing, or will be confusing for some of you, because now you've noticed that there's masculine and there's feminine possessive pronouns. And that is because every single noun in the French language have a gender. It's either feminine or masculine. Now you might think, well, how do I know if a noun is masculine or feminine? It's going to come by learning. As you learn them, you'll know that they are feminine or masculine by noticing what article or determiner is in front of them, because your article and determiner are also masculine or feminine or plural. Okay? Another way is to have a dictionnaire. Okay? This is a French dictionary. You want to have a French and English dictionary. Say, for example, we were looking up the word table. Table is table. You go to table in French, it's going to say NF. NF means non féminin, feminine noun. And that's how you know the gender of table. Okay, if it's a masculine word, it'll say NM. Okay, non masculin, masculine noun. And that's all you'll know. It's a masculine word. So I know this part is a little bit challenging because French, everything has a gender. So everything has to match in number and gender. So let's do an example with possessive pronouns. Okay? In this example, we have, is this your book? Est-ce votre livre? And then you'll say, is this yours? Est-ce le tien? Est-ce le tien? So why did we use le tien here? What are we talking about? We're talking about book, le livre. Livre is what? It's a masculine noun. So if you look at your list of possessive pronouns, you'll see le tien is the masculine for your. Feminine is la tienne. But since book is masculine, we're going to stick with the masculine possessive pronoun. So that's how we determine that. Now let's look at reflexive pronouns. Reflexive pronouns are used to show that the subject is performing the action on itself. So let's look at the list of reflexive pronouns. So first we have me, te, ce, nous, vous, and ce. So let's look at an example of a sentence with reflexive pronoun. Elle se lave les mains. She washes her hands. So notice se lave, se is in front of, it precedes the verb laver, to wash. Okay, so that's how these pronouns work. They have to be placed in front of the verb. Elle se lave les mains. She washes her hands. Another example, je me coiffe. I'm styling my hair. So coiffer means to style one's hair. And me is your possessive or reflexive pronoun, and it's in front of coiffer, which is the verb. Je me coiffe. I am styling my hair. Sometimes with reflexive verb, you have to repeat the pronoun twice to get a better understanding. Par exemple, we have comment vous vous appelez? The literal translation in English is how do you call yourself? So now in your English question, you have you and yourself. So a subject pronoun and a reflexive pronoun. Same in French, vous and vous. Okay? Now we don't go around saying, how do you call yourself? We say, what is your name? But I wanted to show you how sometimes a literal translation in English doesn't make sense. So we use a meaning. What is your name makes more sense to say. Okay? So that's why I'm saying sometimes when you translate things from one language to another, you're not always getting a literal translation because it just didn't make sense. And that's because everyday concepts in French and English work differently from each other in their respective languages. Now to relative pronouns. So relative pronouns is used to connect a relative clause and a main clause so that you don't have to repeat several times the subject or an object in one sentence. So for the relative pronouns, we have ou, que, qui, and dont. So let's do an example with où. Où means where. La ville où je travaille, the city where I live. Que is used to replace the direct object in a sentence. So an example would be the book that I'm reading. Le livre que je lis. Le livre que je lis. Qui replaces the subject. For example, l'oiseau qui vole. The bird that is flying. Or you could say the flying bird. Dont can show possession and it means whose. Let's do an example. François, dont j'ai rencontré la femme le mois dernier. François, whose wife I met last month. Okay? Dont can also mean including when you wish to refer to something within a group. So for an example, we have le livre dont je t'ai parlé, the book of which I spoke to you about. Or you could say the book of which I spoke about in English. Okay, so dont has two functions, can be used in two different ways. So in this lesson, we've covered pronouns and the different types of pronouns and how to use them. I know it was a lot. Let me know in the comments things that you struggle with and topics that you would want to see. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. On se dit à la prochaine. We'll see you soon. Au revoir.